Hi, everybody. Welcome very much. Whether you're catching this on our Facebook Live from our Facebook page or perhaps on the YouTube video or the podcast later, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. It's just me today. Normally you see, most of the time you see Sonica and myself here, but today it's just me. Sonica is with another client, doing our best to help out here. And as per usual, we hope you're doing okay out there, maybe even great. Hey, in these Corona times, here's what I want to share with you today. In these Corona times, there's so much to disagree about in our little households and families. And I want to give you a simple tool for how we can discover the deeper motivations behind what we want. Because whenever we want something or we disagree about something, there is always a deeper motivation than meets the eye. And when you can find that deeper motivation, it can be really, really useful to smooth out your arguments and disagreements and to find common ground and actual solutions that can work for all of us, all of you. And hey, if you like this, it'd be cool if you hit like on the video, subscribe to our channel, and let's get into it. So, as have become evident to all of us, in the face of this situation and in face of all the rules and recommendations that we now have for how to keep everybody safe, for how to conduct ourselves out in the world, or not in the world at all, we have to make a lot of decisions about how do we follow these rules and how do we interpret these rules and recommendations. And even if, let's say we had the perfect situation where everybody across the world had one set of simple rules that everybody understood. That's of course not the case not even in the slightest bit, but let's just say we did. For me and my partner in my house, we would still have a different interpretation of those rules because that's just the nature of humans. We have our own interpretation of everything, the entire world, and certainly of how to best deal with a completely unusual crisis as the one we're in the middle of. So we are hearing from a lot of couples and families and individuals about how, what do we do with, for example, families that are split families? You have two households, the kids go back and forth. One set of parents interpret the rules in one way, and the other set of parents interprets the rules a different way, right? So is it, we take off all, I heard from one parent, for example, in one household, they said, we do the precautions, we wear masks, we stay away from people, we only send one person out to shop, we wipe our stuff off when it comes into the house. But in the other household, when the kids go to the other parents, they also have to take off all their clothes outside, and then they come into the house, they get disinfected, and then all the clothes get washed or sanitized, and only then can they come in. Now there's a disagreement about how do we do this. Another example I heard is in one family's household, we don't see anybody else, right? We stay at home, we don't go out, we don't see anybody else. But when they go to dad's house or mom's house, they are allowed to see one or two friends, or they are allowed to take walks outside, but not in this household. Now we have a disagreement. So what are we doing here? Yeah, I know I'm seeing some comments here that are suggesting the same thing. The point is, we're gonna disagree. There are gonna be disagreements about the best way to interpret this. And because of that, it's really easy to get into fights about, well, you should do it this way. No, you should do it this way. No, this way is better. We all think we have a reasonable and correct interpretation of what the best way is based on our own minds and experiences, right? What's important and what I want to give you here today is whenever we have a strong desire about this is the way we should do it, there's always an underlying and deeper motivation that guides that choice. And when we can discover what that underlying deeper motivation is, it's a lot easier to come together and work as a team, or at least approach each other a little bit. So how you discover this, I'll give you an example. Let's just say In one household, let's just go with the example of a blended family. One household has different rules than the other household. Let's say in one household, we don't go out at all. We stay at home all the time. That's it. The other household, they do the same thing, but they're okay with going outside and taking walks in nature. Even if they might pass somebody, they stay away. They're sensible about it, but they do allow for kids or parents to go out and take walks. Let's just say that's the difference we're working with. How you can begin to discover the deeper motivation is you simply ask the question, so that what? So one parent might say, I want us all to stay home and nobody go out, not even for walks, so that, so that we don't get in touch with other people. Okay, but so that what? There's almost always a next so what. So that we don't get in touch with other people, so that we don't get contaminated. Okay, great. And if we don't get contaminated, so what? So that what? So that we are all safe. Great. Really, that's kind of where it lands. So we are all safe. And you might say, so that we don't contribute the spread to anybody else. So that we're all safe. That means my family and, so that I'm doing my part to keep society safe. Excellent. You ask the next person, the other set or the other parent who says, no, it's okay to take walks out in nature. Okay, so that what? So that we can keep our sanity while we're in this crazy situation. So that we don't go totally stir crazy and take it out on each other. So that we can de-stress while we're in confinement. So that I can relax a little and not take my stress out on my kids. Great. That's what we're aiming for. The deeper motivation is to de-stress, to relax, to move our bodies, to still see nature, which helps our minds be safe and sane and calm. That's a good intention. When you do there's like this string of so that. When you do that, you eventually get to, these are the deeper motivations. So for one parent, it might be to keep everybody safe. And the other parent is, to keep everybody safe and sane and physically exercised. Okay, great. Those are good intentions. Like, that's not a bad thing that any of us want that. Great. Well, so given that those are our intentions, to stay safe, to stay physically exercised and have our minds relax as well. Okay, we're not really in disagreement about any of those. Those are so close to each other in spirit and in content that there's nothing really to argue about. Now it becomes a question of, first, for one, I can say to you, even though you have the other opinion from me, I could say, I can see why that makes sense. Or that's a good intention. I'm not trying to argue with you about that. I too want us to be safe and physically exercised and keep our minds sane. That sounds like a pretty good idea. Great. Now you can begin. That's a whole other step that I won't go into here. But the next step from that is, given now that we see each other's deeper motivations and we see that we're not that far apart, now the next step is to, how do we begin to craft practical solutions that could take care of as much of that as possible, even if we don't find the perfect solution. I was telling somebody else I was coaching the other day that we are living in suboptimal times, and we are working with suboptimal conditions, and many of the solutions we come up with are suboptimal. But that's the best we can do in this insane situation, right? There's so much that's suboptimal. So we work with that. However, we can still have a still suboptimal solution that's a lot better. So let's look for that. And like I said, if you can do this string of so that, it can easily help you get to what's the deeper motivation. And you'll probably see that your deeper motivation is not very far off from that of your ex or partner or kids or, the people in the other household or on the other side of the street. So that's what I encourage you to practice with today. What's the so that? behind your desires and your suggestions? And what do you think the so that is behind your partner's or ex's or other people's suggestions and preferences? And hey, if you found this valuable, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we're going to see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock on our Facebook page, 1 o'clock Pacific time. Until we see you again.